Hey everyone, Robert here, author of Expansion Mastery, the practical guide to living a fully engaged life. Are you ready to start living your life to the fullest? Are you ready and willing to transform yourself and your life from ordinary to extraordinary? Welcome, my friends, to the Fully Engaged Life. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I hope you tuned in to the previous episode, number 266, for that incredible interview with a very talented musician, singer, songwriter, and music producer, Mike Anuzzi. I really enjoyed talking with Mike, and I'm thrilled to be able to share his music with all of you. And if you haven't done so yet, make sure that you follow him on social media, subscribe to his Facebook page so you can check out all of his music videos and songs from his CDs. And of course, find out where he's playing next so that you can attend one of his fantastic live performances. All right, let's get to it. Most of you, especially those of you that tune into this program, have by now heard the phrase, "Don't believe everything you think." This is good advice, and it's something that is commonly shared within spiritual practices, and for very good reason. What I would like to do is present you with one facet of this phrase's meaning and how it applies to our ability to live a fully engaged life. So, I'd like to tell you a little story. Actually, I don't need to tell you a story because you are telling yourself stories all day long. And most of the time, you don't even realize this is happening. You see, as we bring in information through our senses, the mind is triggered to create a story around anything that you see or you hear or you smell. You are instantly creating a story around it to offer some sort of validation to understanding what is going on around you. Now, this is an unconscious mental process, which means that we're generally unaware of it. We do this all the time. And you may have heard or even engaged in this sort of activity when you go out to a restaurant or some public place with friends and you do some people watching and you go, "Hey, what's that guy's story over there?" And then all of you take turns making up a story about who the person is and why they're there and what they're doing. Well, the fact of the matter is you are doing this hundreds or even thousands of times every single day. And it is these stories that all too often cause us to have a totally incorrect perception for the reality of what is going on in the moment. In a previous episode, I had shared the example of the person who is lying in bed late at night and they hear an awful noise, just a dreadful screaming noise, and they jump out of bed and they grab a baseball bat, and in their mind there's someone hurting a small child out in the alleyway, and they go outside to try and save this child because they can hear the child just wailing away and they can't take it. They've got to protect this child. So they go running out into the alley with their baseball bat, ready to defend a child and save this young person. And they find out that it's a cat wailing at the moon. But their mind had already created an entire scenario, including some visual aspects of what the child looked like, what the person harming the child looked like, what the situation was going to be when they got there. And it was all fabrication. There was no truth to it whatsoever. See, this sort of thing is happening far more than you understand, far more than you would ever guess this is happening. Think about the last time this happened to you, that your mind automatically created a story around something or someone or a situation that you later found out was just totally absurd, that you couldn't have been more off base if you were trying to be off base. Think about that. Take a moment, pause this, and see if you can recollect an example of such a thing in your life. Okay, did you come up with one? It should be pretty easy. And you probably just kind of dismiss the whole thing. See, we believe that it is our conscious mind that is creating these stories, that we are thinking these things. And while we are indeed thinking those things, it is not our conscious mind that is engaging that. So our perception of life can be incredibly skewed. And in most cases, for everyone, it is. Unless you have engaged in practices that help you understand this process, bring it to light, and correct it. Now, let's look at this from another angle, because when our mind is making up stories like this, and it tends to dwell towards the negative, then we're in real trouble. Do you understand? This is the root of a lot of anxiety, worry, dread, and other such fear-based negative conditions that negatively impact our life, lower our vibration, cause our heart center to close, and prevent us from living in the moment with love and appreciation. Now, when we look at this, we can clearly see that some people are more susceptible to the mind gravitating towards the negative than others. And as we can see in our culture here in the United States, this seems to be increasing dramatically. So everybody, regardless of whether they lean towards the positive or the negative, is making up these stories about things around them. And those stories are based on their own past knowledge, past stored images, past beliefs, and other things. So this is why the perception is often wrong, because so many things that are going on out in the world are beyond anything that we have experienced so far. Right? So let's look at it from the negative perspective here. How often do we create some negative scenario, something that seems like it's going to be really bad, only to find out it's not that bad at all? Maybe it was great, right? Again, pause this and see if you can recall a time when you did that. It shouldn't be very difficult. All right, great. And you can probably recall how once you got into this negative space creating this story, you kept adding to the story, and the story just kept getting worse and worse and worse, right? We often refer to this as spiraling downward. And then this takes you to an even deeper, darker place. This takes you to a place of even lower vibration and greater fear. And then the mind dwells on that, even though it's based on absolutely nothing. There's no truth to what you are dwelling on. I think we have all experienced that at one point in our life or another. But there are ways to work with this and improve this and even outrightly change this within our own mind. And I would like to point out some of the ways of doing so. All right, step 1, catch yourself doing this. Become aware of it. Okay, that's the first thing. You can't fix a problem that you don't even know exists. So what we want to do first off is realize that this is happening. So we want to bring this unconscious process into our conscious mind, where we can then realize that it's happening. Wow, I really do end up doing that. I had no idea that my mind was doing that, but now I can kind of become aware and observe my mind creating these stories all day long over all kinds of things. Once this is brought to your attention and you're made aware of it, and you can actually see that you are indeed doing it, then you understand that the problem exists, and that's about 50% of correcting it. So for step one, here's what I recommend. I recommend you pull out a journal or get a little notepad, and you keep it on yourself so that you use it as a reminder trigger, so that by feeling it in your pocket or seeing it in front of you, so it keeps you mindful to do this. And then when you catch yourself, just be aware of it. Maybe you catch it after, or you're sitting there having lunch and you think, wow, look at the story I just made up. And you write down the instance and just write a note about it. You don't have to write half of a book or anything too time consuming, but just write a note. Jot down, yep, I did it, and it was around this kind of subject. And every time that happens, try and catch it as much as you possibly can. You might be a little surprised at the end of the day how many examples of this you have logged. Okay? Number 2, second step. When this happens, observe it. Now that you know it's happening, what we want to do is watch it happen. Observe as our mind goes through this process in real time. This allows us to understand it, and we get to know how it works a little bit. And this is a very, very crucial step in the process. It is here that you can begin to figure out what actually makes it begin. How does it start? What is it that causes that process in my mind to begin? Now, many people are in a hurry to try and change it so that they can fool themselves into thinking that they've already fixed the problem. This is a major mistake. Take some time and actually observe as it happens. The clearer you get for the fact that it's happening and how it actually comes to be, the greater your chances of succeeding at turning this around. One of the things I would do is I would just observe as my mind unfolded this absurd scenario, this explanation for something that was based on no factual evidence whatsoever. And I would laugh. I would start to smile, and I would laugh at myself, and I would find that the whole thing was quite amusing. And sometimes I would even share this with somebody. Go, hey, you know what? Look at this. My mind was just creating this story around that, and it is just the most obscure thing, and it's not based on any proof for anything, nothing real. And once you get in tune to just how utterly absurd this is, you already start to realize the truth of the phrase, we can't believe everything we think. Okay, step number 3 is to notice when this is happening, and now we're going to stop it in real time. In other words, what we're going to do is we're going to interrupt this unconscious mental process. We want to get to where we can stop it. Now, in the beginning, you might already have fabricated quite a story, but as time goes, you'll get better and better at this, and you'll be able to catch it as soon as it kicks in. And that's what you want to do. The important thing is to catch it. Be patient with yourself. Don't become frustrated, but remain always aware of it. And when it starts, just stop. And be able to say to yourself, I have no idea what's going on with that person or with that car or in that situation, and I'm okay with that, because it doesn't concern me. The vast majority of the time, the things that are going on that we want to make up stories about don't concern us at all. And yet the mind jumps to create a story around those things regardless. And of course, we see the truth in this through the example of the neighborhood busybody, right? Nearly every neighborhood has that one person that's always peeking through their curtains, and they have binoculars and all these things. And they always have to involve themselves in what's going on. And most of the time, these people are making up stories about what they see. But even without being a busybody, your mind will automatically start creating these stories. The mind tends to take the most basic of information and then run with it, creating a total fabrication. So we want to stop the process. Interrupting it is a great way to interact with this and begin to change it to be more positive, or to just stop the stories from getting out of hand anyway. The fourth and final step is to change it, to make the conscious decision to stop this thing from even happening. Or if you have a tendency to lean towards the negative badly, what I recommend, instead of just trying to stop it, because that can be extremely difficult to come from the negative all the way to getting rid of this, change it to the positive first. And with this, we can relate to another phrase that we commonly hear. And that goes something like, instead of thinking the whole world is out to get you, change your thoughts to the whole world is out to help me and act on my behalf. We want to start looking at things as the universe acting in our favor, conspiring in our favor instead of against us. Now, this can be challenging in its own right, and I know I had to go through this. The way I was raised to believe that, everybody's trying to get over on you, and it's you against the world, and everything is stacked against you, and that was not doing me any good. That was causing my ego to inflate. That was causing my fears to increase. And when I made the active decision to change that and say, you know what, there's no evidence to support that. However, it may be happening because I'm attracting it to me. I'm going to try something else. What if I started to look at life differently? What if I started to look at life in a way that the world was acting in my favor? And it took me some time, took me months, but I was finally able to change that perspective. And when I did, my entire world changed. It was incredible. And once I had that, I could use that, and then I was like, all right. And that takes us into a great positive space. And then the stories that my mind would come up with were generally focused more on the positive outcome of things. Oh, this is going to be incredible. This is going to be great, right? So that's very helpful. Of course, we know in life, things aren't always great all the time. Sometimes we form an expectation that it's going to be great and it falls short, right? And this is why, so you can see these are two extremes. And this is why ultimately what we want to do is try to suspend this process. We want to suspend this process from taking place so that we don't waste mental energy coming up with all of these stories, negative or positive. And we just accept what is. This is when you get into true happiness or bliss, because there is no opposite to that. So it in itself is not an extreme. This is certainly how it's viewed within spiritual systems. So I used to write down the phrase like that, the world is working with me, not against me, or for me, not against me. And I would have these little Post-its in my work locker, on the dashboard of my car, things like that. And I would keep this in front of me as a constant reminder until I became mindful enough on my own to hold that sort of thought in my mind at all times. And then I would use a daily contemplative practice, a meditative practice, where every evening before I went to bed, I would take a seat and I would just kind of replay some of the circumstances of the day. And I would catch myself whenever I told a story, whenever my mind had decided it was going to create a story around someone, something, or some circumstance. And I would just watch how it played out again, just kind of review in my mind how it played out. And then I would take a look at, geez, here I thought it was this and it wasn't. Or here I thought it was going to be this terrible thing and it wasn't. And I got to see just how often that happens. And the clearer that I became for that happening, and the fact that, at least 9 times out of 10 it was wrong, it really shed a lot of light on the importance of this and how to fix it. And then I got so I could recognize this was happening in real time, and I would just stop myself and I would take a moment to consider, if I was thinking that it was negative, I would consider, well, what if this is positive? Look at all the good things this could be. And I would focus on those as well. Because you see, when you do, you attract more of that sort of outcome to yourself. So it's very beneficial. And as you do this, along the way, something really phenomenal happened to me. One of the things that happened was that I suddenly began to have a sense of trust in the universe for the way things would work out. I just trusted. I was able to go into situations, and I was able to stop myself because of practices like the ones I'm sharing with you right now. I was able to stop myself from creating a story around what was going to happen and just go into it. Not thinking anything good, not thinking anything bad, just going straight into it and let it be what it was going to be. And I just didn't focus at all on the negative. And because I was more positively focused and I had a higher vibration, it attracted a more positive outcome or a more positive experience to me. And that just reinforced my ability to be able to trust in the flow of nature, in the way the universe works, and that it is indeed not out to get any of us. And that made a major difference in my life. You see, this is the idea of spirituality. This is what it's about, is realizing that the mind has many of these subconscious or unconscious mental processes that take place. And in some way they serve us, but in many ways they do not. And we start to realize that, man, we're thinking so many things every day that are just not true. They are built upon nothing. They're complete conjecture, nothing but absolutely incorrect fabrication. What a waste of mental energy. And you see, when we either suspend, dissolve, or correct these sorts of mental processes, these are the things that open the door for us to then begin living a fully engaged life. So the danger of these stories is that it then forms beliefs. And can you see where I'm going with this? So a lot of our beliefs then about the entire world around us, different people, different places, different things, different circumstances, all of these beliefs that are formed are often formed on faulty perception caused by these stories being created in our mind that are based on no sense of fact or reality, but instead our imagination. And when this is the case, it's only a matter of time before the fantasy that you have created in the form of a belief and the reality of the way things really are collide. So I encourage you to address this part of your mind, work with it. Do not take my word for any of this. Make sure that you engage it yourself. You come to understand that it is true yourself, and then you are ready to start to work with this. And this will take you one step closer to living a fully engaged life. All right, so we did have a giveaway, and all of the people who sent emails to me at expansionmastery@hotmail.com, you have been notified and your prizes are on the way. So I hope you enjoy that. Thank you for their participation. And make sure and visit me at www.expansionmastery.com. You can go there. I have some great blog articles. I have all kinds of things there. There's going to be some more merchandise for sale very soon. Make sure you go. Make sure you check it out. Make sure you get started on the path of your personal spiritual expansion today. Please make sure that you share this podcast, that you go to YouTube, subscribe, and leave some positive comments and things, and make sure that you're doing all the social media stuff that we do that helps us out. Until next time, my friends, I wish you the very best in your practices and your life. Take care.